Next, we're gonna find the right squat stance for your individual hip, okay? So this is a very basic and easy test that you can do yourself or with someone else. All we're doing is I'm gonna take Leanne's leg here and I'm gonna drive her into as much hip bending or hip flexion as she has and take note of where that is. Now Leanne already has pretty good range of motion, so I'm not really concerned about having a specific stance for her so much. She probably has a variety of options. But what I want to do, and what you can't see very well from this angle, is I'm going to take her and try to put the toe straight ahead in what would be more of a narrow stance, more like hip width, and see how much range we have. Okay? Then I'm going to try to come out a little bit wider, add a little bit of toe out, and see if I get any deeper. And I would say that I probably get a little more range of motion there, and then I'll try even a little wider. I just want to go to the point where I find it gets worse, which is probably a little bit worse here, but she actually has quite a bit of range of motion when the knees are going to be wider with the toe facing out, okay? Now, here's the thing. We have to remember the position that had the most range and try to stand up and squat in that same position. So let's try to keep this same squat stance when we stand up. We'll face this way. Very good. And let's have you facing this way, Lance, just so we can see, all right? And go ahead and squat for me. Very good. Right back up again. Yeah, so it actually looked pretty good. Now, Leanne has pretty decent mobility, but in some individuals, what you'll find is that one position of the hip is very limited with mobility, but another has a ton more motion, and that's where I'd rather squat, okay? The other thing you can do if you don't want to go on your back and test the hip socket, you can have someone squat in a variety of stances, and basically we're looking for the stance that gives us the most depth without flexing or rounding at the lower back. So let's start with a narrow stance with the toes ahead. And let's go ahead and try to squat as deep as you can. Very good. You can see some rounding at the very bottom here. Come on back up again. Keep the heels exactly where they are, but point the toes out just slightly. Good. Same thing. Try to keep that back nice and flat. Go for it. Good. So still some rounding, but that actually looked a little bit better. So I'd say that this is probably a better stance for her for a nice deep squat. Okay? Let's have you stand back up again. Now I want to show you my hip as an example because I have a bit of a weird hip. So if I keep my toes ahead in a squat, I'm actually not very good at getting depth, and I also get a lot of rounding in my lower back. So let me show you. I start with my feet right underneath my shoulders, and I'm going to start with my toes straight ahead. When I go into a squat and I'm trying to keep my back flat, I get towards the bottom and I really start to round over quite a bit. Right? If I keep my heels exactly where they are, and I point my toes out some, and I try to match my knees with my toes, as I go down, it's much, much easier for me to get to depth with my knees a little bit wider, with my toes pointing out. So for me, this is a much healthier position for me to squat, both for my hips as well as my lower back.